Hi beautiful ladies, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk to you about sex workers and how both men and women perceive them. Most recently, you probably heard by now about Bernice Burgos and how she recently said on Joe Budden's podcast that during her bottle service days, she made anywhere from $30K to $70K a night. And recently, OnlyFans model Sophie Rain made $43 million in 1 year. Now, sex workers can be very polarizing. For the most part, people kind of detest them, if you will. They're kind of the underlings of society. They are shunned and looked down upon. But on the other hand, obviously, there are people who are servicing this industry in order for it to be able to bring in literally millions of dollars a year. And women like Bernice Burgos and Sophie Rain, just to put into perspective, Bernice did this for 3 years. And she said that she only made $60K a night. So assuming that she maybe only worked on the weekends, or if she worked multiple days during the week, more than just 2 nights a week, and she was making, on a bad night, as she would say, just $30K, which we know she was making double that some nights, you can already assume that she was easily making at least a couple $1,000,000 a year. And there are other models like Sophie Rain who have made multi-millions doing OnlyFans. Like Bad Baby is another example of someone who made millions from that. So obviously, despite these women being shunned in society for being dirty, as people like to label them, they are obviously serving a highly in-demand need that is generating multi-million dollars. And so I wanted to kind of talk on this sort of dichotomy that exists, this love-hate relationship that exists from both a male and female perspective, because I do think that it's pretty interesting to see how this dichotomy plays out and what it says about our community more than what it says about the industry itself. And when I say community, I just mean human beings in general at this point. So men call the men who supported Sophie's OnlyFans simps and losers for paying for content that you can get for free, and they called her the usual names. And men said that Bernice was lying because she's not all that. Pillowface DJ Academics was one of them. Even Joe Budden tried to kind of like downplay her success by saying, "Oh, like, but your drinks were horrible. Your drinks were not that good. And people only paid you that money because you were Bernice." And it's like, well, duh, like, that's not the insult that you were hoping that it was. Like, that just goes to show that she is a commodity and that she could make that money wherever she went, whether she was serving drinks or not. The drinks were sort of just like a formality that you add to a club scene. And women compared themselves to both Sophie and Bernice by saying that, they have morals, they could never do OnlyFans, or they could never be a bottle service girl because, that's so beneath them and blah, blah, blah. But it's important to note that men dropping large amounts of money on sex workers is not about the service itself, because, yeah, you can view content online for free on other sites. And in Bernice's case, you can go to the club and purchase alcohol on your own and have a good time without spending thousands of dollars on a bottle girl. It's not about the money per se, and it's not about the service. It's about having access to beauty and women who are secretly coveted and being able to access these women when other men cannot, because having this exclusive access to beauty, sexuality, even though sexuality is demonized in just about every culture around the world, it is still highly sought after. It is a commodity. And so men who are able to access this are usually men who have money, more money than the average man, men who are able to drop tens of thousands of dollars in one night. That easily sets them apart from the average man, because the average man, they can't do that. Some men don't even make $30K a year, let alone 60. So they obviously wouldn't be able to do that. And obviously it probably wasn't one person that was dropping that money, but even 10K alone is pretty steep for most men. And so when a man is able to do this or contribute to a woman making 43 million, again, it's not one or even a handful of men doing it, but seeing the value, quote unquote, in having access to these women, again, sets these men apart from the average man. And so it kind of creates this unspoken status symbol where it's like, I'm able to access a type of life and a type of woman that you're not able to access. And so men hold this as a status symbol because they like to be better than other men. Even if no one else knows, it's like this internal form of validation. These men pay to be able to interact with these women, which is something that, again, average men cannot do. Men are very prideful, they're very competitive. And so having sort of that sort of gives you that competitive edge, if you will, and sort of that bravado that most men, even if they don't want to admit it, they strive for. It's the same kind of mentality where like a guy will go 50-50 with a girl. You know, he'll be with a girl who makes more money than him and use up her resources to get ahead, and then either leave her once he gets his own money, he'll leave her for a girl that like is a waitress, or he'll cheat on her with like the secretary who's only making like 40K a year because number one, he goes after the type of girl that he wants aesthetically, the type of girl that most men aspire for, which is the girl who's beautiful. Sociologically, women are valued for their beauty and for having sort of an unattainable beauty that no one else can access. So whether it's a certain body type, physique, and men cannot access that type of beauty because they simply don't have the money to access it. And so if you're a man who's able to access this by any way, you're sort of held up on a pedestal, whether internally or amongst your peers or, you know, in society in general. And even though men and women were clowning both Bernice and Sophie, you know, and calling them names and trying to make them seem as if they are immoral. And on the grand scheme of things, a lot of women are triggered by SCX workers because even though they don't want to admit it, a lot of women chose to date or marry men who aren't as moral as they are. And these are the type of men who gladly consume these women's content. So they cheat with these women, you know, they stare at other women, they watch porn, they like Instabaddies, photos, etc. So when these women hear of the immoral women's success, it's just another reminder that their men ain't SHIT, and it therefore impacts them indirectly and mentally. And secondly, many are mad that these women are making bank being immoral while they have to work twice as hard for much less in the name of morality. So they envy them for doing what they can't do, essentially. So they envy them for kind of buying into the idea of being moral as a woman. Being chaste is kind of the thing to aspire to, and you'll be greatly rewarded if you're chaste, especially religious women. Religious women tend to have a very emotional reaction to SCX workers because, you know, they're told across multiple different religions that, you know, you are the cream of the crop, you are the pinnacle of femininity that every woman and girl should aspire to be when you are chaste, when you are virginal, and, you know, you're going to be greatly rewarded by having a wonderful husband. Many of these women, they work like 40 plus, like sometimes up to 80 hours a week working, doing back-breaking work just to make a decent living. Depending on the industry that they're in, some of them are able to pull in 6 figures a year, and, you know, that's great. And others, like, they're struggling. They have multiple children, they have multiple mouths to feed. And on top of that, some of them, their man doesn't even contribute as much, or, you know, he's out there and they know it, spending money on other girls who look like Bernice and Sophie, and it pisses them off because it's like, I bought into this image of the morally chaste, upright, righteous woman, and this is how I'm repaid. I can't even get fidelity from my man. And so women like that trigger them more than their man cheating on them themselves. Bernice was able to purchase a house with what she earned. She had a goal. She only did it for 3 years, and she was able to buy her nice house cash. And, you know, Sophie's using her money to put herself through school. And so it kind of also plays up on the whole, you know, these women are dumb. They don't have any values. They don't have any dreams or aspirations. They're kind of just destined to be like the scum of the earth, like forever. When it's like a lot of these women are actually very, very smart, and the fact that they tap into these industries with a plan just goes to show that they are smart, because they strategize. They use their pretty privilege. Bernice certainly did. They use their pretty privilege, and they play up on the beauty standards that of their respective communities, and they win. Bernice Burgos, women who look like Bernice Burgos are the beauty standard in the Black community, and so she used that to her advantage to make millions. And Sophie is the beauty standard in her community, and she used that to her advantage to make millions. And so when women kind of buy into the whole purity concept and they realize that it's not working as well as they thought it did, or life is like super hard, despite them playing by the rules, it upsets them even more when they see women like this winning and being able to buy houses, put themselves through school so that they don't have to stay in that industry forever, and they're able to, make a good career without going into tens of thousands of debt in order to pursue it. They have savings and investments, things that these women wish that they could have. And so, of course, it upsets them. These women got to the bag faster, and, the morally chaste woman is still working hard to achieve the same goals. And again, many women have bought into the respectability politics of being good girls, and we're told that only good girls win. But it looks like the bad girls are getting married as well, and they're chosen by men just as much as the good girls are. Look at women like Najla Mallet. She is a fitness influencer on Instagram who used to be in the SEX industry. She used to do corn, and now she's married to an older, rich white man who pays her way through life. Alyssa from Your Favorite Trophy Wife, not the new Trophy Wife. She met her husband, and, before they got serious, they were just hooking up, and then things worked out between them where they fell in love and got married, and now he's paying for her to be a stay-at-home wife. And despite her being a stay-at-home wife and not having to work, he pays for nannies, cooks, whatever, and they are taking multiple trips throughout the year. And many women leave hateful comments on Alyssa's Instagram page and TikTok because it's like they say things like, oh, it's not fair that you get to live this comfortable life and I'm working hard. And it's like, no, you're upset at the fact that this girl didn't play by the rules and she's still winning. And you're upset that men like your husband, or maybe your brothers, or the men in your community who would push this whole respectability politics on you, deep down inside that a lot of them consume content like Najla's content, or they end up marrying women like Alyssa. And it's like, you thought you were going to be in this exclusive club of good girls, but now the bad girls are also joining the group. Despite this hierarchy that you bought into and that you upheld in your mind, these women that you deem to be unworthy they're accessing the same resources that only you were supposed to access, if not more, because they were smart. And of course you're going to be pissed off. You bought into the lie that was created to keep women subjugated to men's will and the male gaze, instead of creating your own rules. And again, I'm not by any means saying that the only way to get ahead is to do SEX work, and I'm certainly not promoting that because it has many, many, many drawbacks. But I'm just saying that these women saw an opportunity, they saw a demand, and they supplied that demand. You again see this rhetoric in a lot of religious settings where pastors and the members, again, also including women, will kind of tell women in particular to be chaste and pure, or else they have no value. But the leaders will cheat on their wives and nothing will come of it. Like, if anything, nothing will come of it. Like, if anything, the woman is chastised and, she's called all sort of names and called a Jezebel. But then, like, the pastor, it's like, oh, he was just a man of God who the devil attacked. So that must mean that he must be such a great man of God, or else the devil would never attack him, as if he can't think for himself. And in a lot of Muslim countries where they have very, very strict publicly Islamic laws, a lot of these Muslim countries are the number one consumers of corn, but will shout haram at everything. Cities like Dubai, which is in an Islamic state, even though it's highly Western, and you can still go to jail for engaging in a lot of things that are legal here in the West. They are hot spots for SEX work, but like these same men, a lot of them are top officials, highly respected in their communities, who will shout that same rhetoric. They obviously would never allow their daughters or the women in their families to engage in that lifestyle, but they gladly spend hundreds of thousands of US dollars to fly out other women to sort of fulfill that fantasy. Respectability politics is just a social construct that men and women wield when it's convenient and beneficial to them. Women will kind of weaponize respectability politics if they think that it'll kind of boost their social standing and make them look upright and maybe increase their prospects for marriage in the future. That's why a lot of women do it, to be honest. Or if they think that it's going to boost their social standing in their community. And then men will do it when they want to control women. So it's kind of like we need to keep women's bodies in servitude to us. So we tell them how and when they get to use their sexuality. But because the women in my family are a extension and reflection of me, they need to be chaste. Otherwise, that then reflects poorly on me, and it shows that I too have no morals and standards, even if you are known to be a man who partakes in the sex industry. I say all this to say, don't allow anyone to shame you or tell you what you should and shouldn't do, because many have secrets behind closed doors and aren't living as righteously as they claim and are probably doing much worse than what you're doing. At the end of the day, only God can judge you, and you have the ability to use your own moral compass to navigate your life. Most people don't desire to indulge in these and other types of activities anyway. Most people desire to live a peaceful life, or, they'll kind of just do things temporarily as a means to an end. But the morality police exists to wield power and to keep women oppressed and disconnected from their femininity and sexuality. So live life on your own terms and let people mind their own business. And also, don't be jealous of or feel threatened by women who are in this lifestyle, especially if you're a religious woman. You really don't benefit from tearing other women down like this and kind of wielding the morality trope, if you will. Again, this lifestyle has a lot of drawbacks, like being objectified by the worst of the worst, having a permanent bad decision. There's women like Mia Khalifa, for example, who was in the industry and, she left it and is trying to turn a new chapter, and people always remind her of her past. So she will forever be known as the infamous corn star. A lot of these women are unable to climb the social hierarchy, the social ladder, because they are shunned by the elites, even though, again, these elites consume the same content. If you look at Amber Rose, she kind of tried to turn her life around and rub shoulders with the conservatives and the elites there, and they pretty much, laughed in their face and were like, thanks for the endorsement, but you're still not one of us and you will never be one of us. A lot of these women face assault, harassment, etc. Some of the wives and girlfriends, they also physically harm these women. In some cultures, they even cast spells on the women who their husband cheated with. So yeah, all that glitters is not gold, but you really don't benefit from being emotionally invested in what someone else chooses to do with their life. And if you're in a relationship with someone who consumes this type of content, but then tells you not to wear any makeup or weave and be holy and righteous, you need to reassess and reevaluate your decision in that person. The problem here is that man and not you or that other woman. You need to question why that man upholds hypocrisy instead of the same morality that he likes to wield. Because in a lot of these religious settings, morality is wielded for women, but morality and the rules for how men ought to live are often ignored, even though it is clearly outlined in a lot of religious settings how men ought to govern themselves as well. In Islam, men are told to lower their gaze so that, you're not making the other woman feel uncomfortable, but you're also not feeding into lust. And in the Bible, there's a number of chapters that will say, it's better to pluck out your eye than to give into lust. Or if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Or, how can a young man keep his way pure? By keeping it according to God's word. Okay, so it says men exclusively, yet still men are not held up to these standards. So you need to call out the hypocrisy that exists in these communities, because it's benefiting men and it's not benefiting you. And now you're oppressed. You don't feel as good about yourself. You don't feel confident because you're not able to truly express who you are, because you're having to give in to these BS rules that exist to benefit men and not you. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know what you think about this topic down below in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.